All right. All right, guys. Welcome to episode number 47 of the Conquer Me podcast. Today, we're going to jam on resentment, what resentment is, why it's so detrimental to your mindset and your health to carry resentment. And we're going to get into how to let go of resentments, right? So I have lived with resentments for literally my entire life. So I'm like many of you guys. I've had things done to me or things happen to me that caused me to be very angry with other people and to carry that resentment. And, I grew up in around a kind of rough upbringing, a lot of drugs, a lot of physical and mental abuse, just kind of a lot of lack and feeling kind of abandoned and all those types of things, right? We all have a story. And out of that story will come different types of emotions. And those emotions, if we don't learn how to manage them, will totally wreck our lives. And resentment is one of those emotions. And so I want to talk through this with you guys today and let you understand that walking around with resentment is killing you. It's not killing the other person. And resentment is a very low frequency, low vibrational emotion. And so when you think about emotions, they really make up largely how we show up. They determine how we show up. They determine the outcomes that we get in our lives because they determine the actions that we take, right? If we feel a certain way, we tend to act a certain way. And so there's something called the law of attraction that we've talked about before, and we've talked about the subconscious mind and how if we go around telling ourselves certain stories over and over and over again, the subconscious mind doesn't know truth. It doesn't know if that is fact or not. It's just listening to the story and it's producing that result. So if you walk around and you go, I'm not good enough, I'll never make it, I'm bad, I'm unworthy. Well, of course, your life is going to reflect that. But if you walk around and you go, I'm more than a conqueror, I am good enough, I have what it takes, I'm smart, I'm kind, I'm a great communicator, whatever the things are, right? Your subconscious mind goes, oh, okay, well, I guess I better go produce that result. And it's the same way with emotions. If we walk around in low vibrational emotions, sadness, guilt, shame, anger, resentment, guess what? We're going to produce more of the same. The universe is going to conspire around us to give us more opportunities to be angry, sad, shameful, resentful. And it keeps us in a really, really low place. However, if we operate from more higher frequency emotions such as joy, peace, and love, the Bible talks about God being love. That is one of the highest vibrational, highest frequency types of emotions that you can feel, and it puts you in the highest, most enlightened place that you can possibly be. Which means you're going to be happier, you're going to have different perspectives, life is just going to kind of click along a little bit easier, and in my opinion, you're closer to God that way. You're closer to Creator when you can operate from love and you can operate from those emotions. However, most of us don't know this, and sometimes it feels really, really good to stay in those low frequency emotions, like resentment, because it gives us justification for why we are where we are and why we act and behave the way we act and behave. So for instance, if someone has done me really dirty, it's okay for me to walk around mad all the time because I'm justified, right? This is their fault. They did this to me. You don't understand. This is why I'm not taking action in my life. This is why I'm getting subpar results. This is why my attitude is bad all the time, because this person did something to me. There's a quote that says, carrying resentment is like drinking poison and then waiting for the other person to die, the person that we're carrying the resentment against. It's going to kill us, guys. It will always kill the carrier. It will not kill the person that you're carrying it against. And so with this knowledge, I want you guys to understand that the harm is being done to you. If you're carrying a resentment, whether it's justified or not, the harm is done to you. Now, I'm not saying it's okay for people to do really bad things to other people. I'm not saying they should get away with it. Sometime, they might just need to catch some hands. But the reality is if you're carrying it around, it's going to be you that's going to be susceptible to disease. It's going to be you that's opening yourself up and being vulnerable to illness, because guys, that's what those types of emotions produce. If you're walking around in a resentful state, your body is in a constant state of stress, And we know what stress does. It breaks down the body. It breaks down the mind. It makes us less resilient. It takes away our power. And so now here we are walking around with this grudge on our shoulder, mad at the world, ready to just kind of take down everybody. And we're not being productive that way. We can't focus on moving our lives forward if we're bogged down in being mad at someone else. Now, listen, guys, this is not something that's easy for me. This is a very difficult practice for me. My mindset from a very young age was kind of kill or be killed. I got to get mine. I got to watch my back because nobody else is going to watch it. And that kept me in a really bad spot for a long time. Because instead of looking for ways to advance and grow and move forward and build new relationships and move the ball, I was always looking backwards. I was always looking at what everybody else did to me. I was always talking about how that affected my life. I was always making excuses and justifying what happened or the reason why I was showing up the way I was showing up. And it was always everyone else's fault. And guess what? That gives them the power. If it's their fault and they have the power to put me where I am today, well then they basically dictate my future. But if I can go, hey, you know what? That person really screwed me over, but here's where it is, guys. Here's what I want you to get. They did the best they could with what they had. Right? I think about the things that I did back in my days when I was, doing all these drugs and living this type of lifestyle. I've stolen from people. I've robbed people. I've hooked up with people's wives. Guys, I've done some really shady stuff that I'm not proud of at all. But when I look back at it, I'm like, you know what? A guy who was never taught any skills, never really told, that I didn't have to live that way. I didn't really have any mentor or anyone kind of pouring into my life and teaching me a different way. I was strung out on drugs half the time. Like, I did the best I could with what I had. A lot of people are mad at their dads for not being around, and I could be in that boat too, and for a long time I was. I didn't meet my dad until I was 8 or 9 years old. He wasn't present. It was just kind of one of those things where I think my mom and my dad hooked up at a very young age, and here I came, and no one really knew what to do, and so, he wasn't present, and for a long time I was mad about that. But then when I really sat down and thought about it, and I thought about what I was doing at his age, I was like, you know what? I really have no room to judge, because that could have so easily been me 1,000 times. He did the best he could with what he had. And guys, if you start to realize this, and if you start to put this into perspective, and you run into somebody who's just a total asshole, and you don't like anything about the way they behave, they don't treat people well, they just are destructive, and all you want to do is punch them in the face. If you step back and you go, you know what? They're just doing the best they can with what they have. I'm just grateful that I have more than that. I'm grateful that I have more awareness. I'm grateful that I have better people skills. I'm grateful that I have more peace in my life. I'm grateful that I have more self-control, because, man, I would not want to be that way. And you can almost start to be sympathetic for that person. Like, man, they're hurting. They don't have the skills. They don't have the awareness. They haven't gone down the path that I've gone down to have the understanding that I have to get out of these low vibrational emotions and to operate at a higher level. And you almost go from being angry and resentful at that person to go, man, that's too bad. You almost want to help them, right? I mean, that's where I'm at, is like, I see people like that and they're just like, and they don't, whatever. And I'm just going, man, no, you just don't get it. You don't get it. You don't have to live this way. Your life is hard because of the way that you're operating and the emotions that you're living in. And so, guys, I mean this. If you carry these things around, or if you carry these burdens of resentment around, it's hurting you. It's hurting you. It's not hurting the other person. I'm not giving justification to the other person for what they did, but I'm telling you, you got to let it go. And you got to let it go for you. This is a time when you can be selfish and you can go, you know what? I'm giving them power to hurt me and to affect my life, and I'm no longer willing to do that. If anything, if someone hurt you, you should be mad enough to let it go. Because now you're releasing the control from them and you're taking it back. And if you're in control, which is that's where we all want to be. We want to be in control of our own emotions. We want to be in control of our lives. We want to be in control of our outcomes. If we take the steering wheel back and go, hey, you know what? I'm no longer going to allow you to cause me to be vulnerable to sickness. I'm no longer going to allow you to steal my joy. I don't care what you did. You did the best you could with what you had, and bless your heart because you don't have much. But I'm going to go a different path, and I'm going to take the steering wheel back, and I'm going to write the story of my life and no longer allow you to do that and to dictate that. That is a powerful position to be in. And that puts us a little bit further up the spectrum of higher vibrational emotions, because at some point, if you continue to practice this, you'll be able to look at that person and go, man, you know what? It's too bad they did that to me. But they did the best they could with what they have. And one day, they're going to have a level of awareness where they're going to wake up and go, holy smokes, that was a bad move. I really did that person bad. I was shady. I've got some repenting, right, to do. I've got some making up to do. And those people will come back at some point and they'll try to make amends, right? I've done it. I've screwed people over. I've done some really shady stuff. And when I finally got my head cleared a little bit and I went, whoa, like in the moment, that seemed perfectly justifiable. That seemed perfectly normal. Like that seemed like the right thing to do. But it was the only reasoning that I had back then that produced that result. Now I have I have a higher level of reason. And so when I sit down and I think about things now, logically I go, that doesn't make sense. That's wrong. So now I can go back and make amends. But guys, you got to let people be where they are. And trust me, again, this is not easy for me. Like someone rubs me the wrong way, I'm ready to go at it. It's like I am working through this on a regular basis. And it's funny, I was talking to a good buddy of mine the other day in the gym, and we were talking about a similar conversation, and we're talking about playing Frisbee. We play Ultimate Frisbee every week, and it's pretty intense, right? We get into it. It's a highly competitive game. It's all guys, all a bunch of 40, 50-year-olds who are still trying to be 20-year-olds. It's pretty entertaining. But I will say it's a lot of fun, and it's a good kind of hobby for me. But we were talking about getting frustrated out there and how often we get frustrated. And I said, I don't get mad out there. Like that's not something that I really do. We rib each other and we talk trash and we just laugh it off. But some people get really, really angry. They get really angry and they allow it to affect their whole day. And my buddy who I was talking to, he's like the most chill dude. He just doesn't get mad about anything. And he goes, yeah, I never really get mad out there. And I said, well, I'll never be probably as easygoing as you. It's just a different personality, type. But he goes, the cool thing about that is you can change that. If you want to be less aggravated, you can change that. And he said, I feel like sometimes I need to be more aggravated. And he said, the beautiful things is I can change that. When you change your personality, you change your personal reality. And we have the opportunity and the ability to do that. And so I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool that we can manipulate that and change that whenever we want to. And so, but that level of awareness is just not there for most people, guys. And that's the reason I'm creating this episode is like, I want us to understand that you can control this. And when you let things go, all of a sudden you have a level of freedom that most people don't have. And it's a really, really, really beautiful thing. But if you walk around with all of these burdens and you're mad all the time and you're hurting all the time, you're just not ever going to do the things necessary to create a life of joy and love and peace. And so I thought it was interesting as we kind of talked through that, like there's different levels of tendency to carry resentment. But the point of that story is I look back and I said, you know what, man? Now that I think about it, I have made some major strides because I used to be the guy that would just totally fly off the handle if you bumped into me a little bit when we were playing Frisbee or whatever, right? I just had a very unstable emotional patterns. But today I look back and I'm like, dude, compared to then, I'm doing amazing, right? So I want you guys to recognize progress in this area. I don't want you to think that you're going to go out and just totally forgive everybody for everything they've ever done, and there's not going to be some level of resentment still harbored there. But I believe that resentment is let go in phases, right? The first level is just awareness that it's killing you and not them. And then it's understanding that they're doing the best they can with what they have. And then it's looking back and taking an inventory and say, hey, you know what? If I had their upbringing and their resources and their influences, would I do any better? It's doing a self-audit. And then when you might say, maybe not, then that gives you grace to forgive. And when you start forgiving these people, then all of a sudden that resentment starts to kind of uproot, and then you can start to get rid of it. And at some point, maybe there's a chance to make amends in that relationship, which is a beautiful thing. And I've done that a lot. I mean, guys, this is very personal, but one of the worst things I've ever done in my entire life, and I still have a hard time with this today, is I hooked up with a friend of mine's wife. They were going through a separation, but still they were married, and it's the lowest thing I've ever done. And I was strung out on drugs for days. She was hurting. It started out me just kind of going to talk and help her through it, and then one thing led to another, and it's very, very embarrassing thing. But me and that guy are good friends again today. So I went back to him at some point, and I took my licks, and I said, dude, listen, this is the worst thing I've ever done. You were a good friend to me. You didn't deserve this. In my mind at that time, for some reason, it somehow made sense. And it's the worst thing I could have possibly done to you and to her and to y'all's relationship. And him and I are good friends today, and we've made amends, and it's a really amazing thing that he had the ability to forgive me for that. But then there's also things on the other side that people have done to me that I have to look back and go, you know what? If he can forgive me for that, I certainly have to have it and find it inside of me to forgive this person for cutting me off in traffic, or for talking about me behind my back, or whatever silly thing they did, right? And it's the whole thing about, if you believe in the Bible and you believe in that story of like the ultimate forgiveness is a man dying on a cross so that we can be forgiven. So we are also called to forgive. And when we forgive, we let go of these resentments, and it puts us in a much better place in life. So guys, I hope you got something out of this. There's a lot to unpack here. And it's something that I'm personally pursuing right now in my own life to get better at, to not hold grudges and resentments. And I just encourage you, if you want to live a fulfilled life, you got to figure out how to let that shit go. Just let it go, move on from it, operate at a higher level, a higher frequency, so that you can enjoy life and not be weighed down by all these past experiences. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please share it. I appreciate any 5-star reviews. And just getting the word out. If you think this podcast would be helpful to a friend or family member, just send it to them. A lot of times that will lead to them kind of looping back and listening to some other information that has had some pretty cool impact on people. So I'm grateful for that. Thanks again for listening, guys. See ya.